Hi, good evening all. Tonight we're going to be talking about teaching task 3A, the music tech coursework. As per usual, we're just going to start with a bit of a pre-lib, so just to what we've been doing this week and how we've been getting on. So this week we've been carrying on with the task 1A course, and Sam, who's been solely responsible in putting together the 3A stuff, has churned out the first score of next to me. And he's currently working on the next score, which is ready for the floor. He's doing really well with this stuff. Oh, hold on, I'm monitoring it again. At least I know it's working. There we go, a bit of live stuff happening there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Sam's been solely responsible for 3A. He's currently working on the next score, and then he's going to be working on the timbres. Once I've finished the 1A course, I'm going to drop back and kind of try and make a course for at least one of them. I'll probably do the next to me one actually. That's the one I'm favouring at the minute. Now, this course, having your students already done the 3 tasks of the AS, this course is not going to kind of throw up any major surprises. Okay, so let's just work through what we've got so far. So we're just going to take a brief look at the mark scheme, and we're going to look at managing time a little bit better. And with this course, as I say every week, time is really the big factor and how to kind of make everything count. And task 1A, you can lose, sorry, task 3A, you can lose a lot of time on this. So we're going to just discuss that briefly. What the students need to know before getting into task 3A. We'll have a brief look at the logbook, and then once again I'll take some Q&A at the end. So if anyone's watching, it looks like we've got a couple of people watching tonight, which is fantastic. So if you're watching, feel free to come by and have a chat. I've opened up the chat bar tonight, so I think this might be another way of getting you guys involved without actually having to put yourself on voice and camera. So if you just want to type into the chat bar, please feel free to do that, or just come in and have a chat. Okay, so without further ado, task 3A, what to expect, what's it all about? Same as 1A, a large portion of the marks go to pitch, rhythm and timbre. Only 40% this time, but it's still massively important. What's expected with 3A is that your accuracy of sequencing and your skills have advanced so much that it's going to be that much better. So the kind of the progression from AS to A2 is quite a big one. So when you're getting your students to kind of look at this, make sure that they kind of take this very seriously, and make sure that they've done all their foundation work and that they're up for the task. They're going to really need to push themselves on this one. Audio recording becomes a big thing in A2, and task 3A is no exception. Every single task is built up of audio. And I'll suggest a few ways of how to kind of deal with that in a couple of slides time. But just keep that in mind, 20% for the audio. Also links in very much to the mixing, so making sure that the sequence stuff, the MIDI stuff, is kind of matched and stylistically appropriate, so that the audio doesn't sound out of place. And so often you'll listen to a student's track and it's like, well, you know, it sounds like they're completely two different tracks that you've just chucked together. So they're going to have to spend a lot of time making sure all the dynamic processing, all the EQ, all the panning fits just such so that if you compared something like the 3B task where it's just audio, you know, and you think, oh my goodness, it all just sounds like one track. 3A should be like that. It should almost be like everything was recorded like with audio. So just keep that in mind. Musicianship also plays a big part. It would be expected this year that if there's a part that can be played in, it should be played in. Okay, I tend to really force my students into a situation where they try to play some of these parts in. I tend to have a 50-50 split with my students. Some are extremely musical and some are not, and they're more into the audio production. So this can be an uphill battle with some of them, but it's worth it. It's worth doing. And if you watched this week's video for task 1A, I've suggested a few approaches for kind of how to make non-played in stuff more realistic. So feel free to have a little look at that. Let's have a quick butchers at the mark scheme and how to kind of handle the mark schemes. Let me just flip my camera over for a second. Okay, the mark scheme. As said in last week's one, it's marked in two ways. You've got the holistic mark and you've got the detailed mark. What you're going to find is stumbling blocks again, and I'm always talking to my students about these stumbling blocks. If you haven't done a certain thing, you're not going to get past a certain mark. So no matter what you get in the detailed mark, it's going to be really hard to get it if it doesn't reflect well against some of these stumbling blocks. So just looking at this bottom bit, insufficient work has been submitted. So one thing I try and get myself out of the habit is my students will always come to me and say, "Oh, so how many marks have I got now? I've just done this little bit," or "How many marks have I got now? And I've just done this little bit." And I always say, "Look, I physically can give you a rough mark, but I can't mark it. It wouldn't be worth any more than poor because of this insufficient work submitted. You know, and if they can't finish the whole sequence, it's always going to be a really low mark." So, and then look at the next one, a weak end product. So if I hadn't done the mixing properly, or if the audio is jumping out all over the place, it's still not going to get it. And even at this grade here, you can't get past 10 if you submit an incomplete piece of work. So always be showing them this. Look, these are the stumbling blocks. If you haven't done your part, I can't give you a rough estimate because you physically can't get what you deserve until you've finished it. Okay. Once you get to the detailed mark, you're going to see lots of these stumbling blocks within the actual detailed mark. So, seriously compromised with performance, seriously compromising performance. These are the rhythm and pitch ones. The ones I'm looking for is the ones that say things like sounds mechanical, and you're going to get a lot of this. If it sounds mechanical, if it's not been inputted very well, you're going to get a lot of this. Actually, it sounds mechanical. Here we go. Articulation, phrasing sounds mechanical. So basically, if they input everything and they don't spend enough time and attention over kind of the MIDI controllers and manipulating the velocities and the expression and kind of making it sound more like the actual track, you know, articulation, phrasing, you can't get for because the marks aren't there. If it still sounds mechanical, you can't get it, and that's the same with dynamics. And I'm sure we'll find it here with the capturing of audio. If the quality is substandard, and I find this a lot because it's such a rushed thing, I always leave the audio for task 3A towards the end of the project because I like the track to sound absolutely perfect, but we tend to kind of run out of time. So it is quite a rushed thing. Once again, in a second, I'll show you a way of dealing with that. The last couple of years, I've really got this spot on, so I think you're going to appreciate what I'm going to say in a sec. But for now, making sure that they're aware of these stumbling blocks. If they haven't sorted out the EQ, if no attention's been paid to the dynamic phrasing, if there's noise on the recording, you can't get past one. And the examiners, and we get this quite a lot when people are emailing me and they say, "Oh, we really worked hard on this. We've really done lots and lots of effort on this, and this." And this is the first thing I point them to. Okay, but can you wholeheartedly say that the attention was there? Can you wholeheartedly say that, the effort's gone into all these? Have you looked at the mark scheme? And more often than not, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do next year. And I was the same. I'm not coming from a standpoint of I've always done this right, because I haven't by any means. The first, like say, 2 or 3 years were massive errors in the making for me. Problems with timing, problems with kind of understanding how this all works. But now we've gained a lot of experience, and hopefully we're sharing that. So there's the mark scheme. And once again, at the beginning of the course, and you should have already done this, I give my students 3 pieces, free booklets. I give them this mark scheme, I give them this logbook, and I give them this portfolio. They have everything they need to succeed in these 3 pieces of work. And I will walk through them. I'll spend a little bit of time walking through each one of these booklets and just making sure they understand how everything works. And it saves me loads of time in the end. Okay, let's move back to my other screen. So, moving on. Well, we've got time management. So, in order not to waste too much time, I actually don't start this project at the beginning of term 1. Because there's no score, because there's no kind of real preparation being done, I tend to do a lot of preparation, getting the score ready, finding my way around the piece, trialing out a few of the parts. So I will generally start this piece at the beginning of term 2, maybe the end of term 1, just to get them ready for it. And once again, we'll do lots of listening and we'll set the project up properly. And we generally do this together as a class. So I'll walk them through and we'll listen to each of the sections, and we'll discuss on what name we're going to give that section, how long it lasts for, things to look out for, and we'll make extensive notes on this. As said previously, after completing last year's Task 1A, there's going to be no massive surprises apart from you have to record audio. So as long as you get the project set up, as long as you did, they understand how to kind of do sequencing, this is not going to cause them massive problems. They will have to go above and beyond, but that's not a problem. And also the key thing is making sure that they have that reference track put inside of the project. Okay, so really big thing, save you loads of time if you don't start this one straight away. Concentrate in this first term, you should be concentrating on getting 3B finished and starting 3C. Okay, and this one you can start next term once you've got the score, once you've done a little bit of preparation. Your preparation will kind of help your students. Okay, here's my tip bit. Now, all 3 pieces now, you've got your first professional mixing. So everything we do in A2 is about being professional. If your students went into a working environment, they would find this kind of work. They would find work where it's not all audio and it's not all MIDI. They would find work that there is a mixture of everything: audio, MIDI, sampling, synthesis, you name it, it all goes. And that's where I really like the A2 specification, because it gives your students the chance to be professional. It gives your students a chance to see how the projects that they could be getting involved in once they finish really work. And Task 3A is no different, creating an actual track with a vocal line. And in my opinion, this is where 1A really falls down. It needs that vocal line, it needs a proper vocal, not just a sequenced input. So straight away it gets the 2 thumbs up for just having that. The downside, of course, is that everything has to be recorded. You need, unlike in AS where you only need audio for 1B, you need audio across the board. We are constantly recording audio, and it became such a pain to actually record audio, keep taking my students up into the studio, bouncing it down, and even when we got a network, the issues with network were massive. So in the end, 2 years ago, I begged my head of music, or was it 3 years ago? It might have been 3 years ago now. I begged my head of music, I said, you know what, I've got this lovely little room, and it's a tiny room, it's not a big room, where we do all our sequencing. I said, I really need a vocal booth, and not a 4x4, which is a square box. I need a 4x6. A 4x6, you can pretty much put everything in there apart from a drum kit. Okay, so literally, apart from 3B, where we'll go upstairs and into the studio and do all our recording, literally every piece of recording now is done in the vocal booth, and it's fantastic. I can have all my students working, and one of them say, oh, I just want to lay down a vocal, I just want to lay down a guitar part. And I can just chuck them in the vocal booth, drag some leads out into the audio interfaces, and they're away. Within seconds, that person's recorded it. And I don't have to waste mountains of time, keep going up to the studio, helping them set up, make sure everything's done properly, whilst keeping an eye on all my other students. Because realistically, in the early days, they can come back at lunchtime, they can do that, or they can come back at this spare time, or they can come back after school, they can come in before school. And I was always juggling my time, and I was like, what am I doing here? But having the vocal booth, there is no more of that. Most of the work, apart from when I do control conditions, which is off timetable, most of the work is done in the vocal booth or in the sequencing lab. Like I said, we'll only go up to the studio once a year now, and that is literally for 3B. So all those tens of thousands of pounds that we spent on the recording studio, it's almost made redundant, but don't tell my head of music that, because you'll kill me. But yeah, the vocal booth, it's an absolute winner. And actually, you could pretty much run this whole course now with a sequencing lab and a vocal booth, or a biggish booth, minus the drum kit. I think that's pretty much all that I need to say about this particular area, apart from, remember, your students have to record a vocal, and they get an option of 2 other pieces of audio. They don't have to record any more audio than the vocal, but it is worth doing. It's worth recording a little bit more if the parts require. Musicianship's also a big thing again, so making sure that they are using advanced advanced sequencing techniques. Make sure they're using the MIDI controllers, making sure they're using automation, making sure they're spending lots of attention on their mixing, you know, and this by now should be commonplace. They've been mixing for a whole year for every single task. So as long as that is kind of ingrained into them now, that this is the process that we use for mixing, this shouldn't be an issue. Once again, my students do tend to lose quite a few marks on the musicianship, especially those that aren't particularly musical. They do tend to lose a few marks on the musicianship. So making sure, and they can spend a bit of time using step input, for instance, or using you know, looped areas where you have a punch in and a punch out. You know, where they don't have to play the whole part in. I think this scares a lot of students. It's, oh, but how am I going to play the whole part in? It's going, you know, I'm going to make so many mistakes. And I will quite often have a lesson where we train in how to input a 4-bar sequence, rather than, you know, and actually train them into learning small parts, inputting them, then learning the next part, and showing them how the punch in, punch out works. Really important skill. Okay, the logbook. So this year's logbook is a lot simpler than last year's. And actually, rather than giving you a blank piece of paper where you just kind of go for your life and fill it in, they're actually giving you boxes to actually scale down the amount of writing that your students need to do. So let me just go over once again to my logbook and over to another screen. So the logbook, make sure we got the right one. Here we go. So task 3A. First off, which song? Because you've obviously got a choice of 2, you have to write in the song there. And then this page in AS would normally be just a blank piece of paper, and you have to write in all the timbres and how you manipulate them. But it's very, very clear in this one. It's like, okay, which timbre is it you're trying to do? Is it the drums? Is it the string pad? Is it the bass guitar? Very simple. Whatever it sounds like on the track, write it there. This bit, what plugin or hardware have you used to manipulate this? Okay, I've used Halion. Okay, I've used the ES2, whatever. How have you edited it? So talk about the effects you've used. Talk about any kind of synthesis that you've used. Talk about any kind of mixing and EQ that you've used, or filtering that you've used. And that's literally it. You know, 3 or 4 points will pretty much cover this area. You know, you're going to have to write small. Okay, and that covers that. So nice and easy this year. This bit here, question 2, I get them to fill in even mostly before they've even done the work, because we already know what a couple of the microphones that we're going to use. We already know the interface, the audio interface, or the mixing desk that we're going to use. We already know the software, Logic, that we're going to use. We can fill in a few of these because we're always going to use compression, we're always going to use EQ, we're always going to use reverb, we're pretty much always going to use delay. And you can add to that later, but I'll get them to fill this in straight away. You know the monitoring equipment, so what speakers are you using in the studio, which headphones they're using downstairs, and what other equipment have you used to monitor this. And same for other equipment, DIs, preamps, and all the rest of it. Then this is straightforward again, so the instrument you've used, so the first one should be vocal, of course, how you've positioned it. So things that you should be looking at is, okay, how far away from the mouth, have you used a pop shield, you know, have you used a cradle for the actual thing? Have you used closed back headphones? What else can you put down? So how far away from the mouth it was, and you could even put down the polar pattern if you want to, which is pretty much always cardioid, of course. Any effects and processing that you've used. Once again, compression, EQ, gating, and reverb. So really, really simple to kind of fill this in this year. Not massively difficult at all. Like I said, a lot of this you can fill in straight away, and I will go through pretty much all of these areas where the information is already available to me, and I'll get it filled in straight away with the students. And whilst we're looking through, and I'll talk about the section B in the next video. But yeah, so that's the logbook in a nutshell for 3A. That's the logbook in a nutshell. Okay, moving over to the other screen again. Okay, so I think we're almost at the end now. We're just going to do a bit of Q&A. We're going to have a little look over at the project to see if there's any other stumbling blocks that we've missed out. Now, we've got, how many viewers we've got on? We've got 2 viewers, so hopefully someone comes in a second, has a chat. Don't worry if you don't want to, it's not a problem. But if you have got any questions, please feel free to kind of shoot them my way and just kind of ask whatever you want. And if I've gone too fast, it's probably because I've drunk too much coffee tonight. But you know, I think we're making some good progress, and I think I'm trying to answer all the questions that you guys might have. So, you know, once again, do feel free to pop by, or do feel free to shoot me an email. Okay, so while we wait around for people to come in, let's see what we've got in terms of this actual brief. Now, next to me, that's the one I'm favouring at the minute. That's the one that Sam has finished the score on, and he should be finished, the next couple of weeks should be finished with the Ready for the Floor. He's currently then going to fall back and do the timbres for that, so that should be good. There's some stuff to get you going. But before term 2 starts, or just as term 2 starts, I will get the course done for next to me. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time to do Ready for the Floor. I might have to see if I can pass that on to someone else, but I will definitely get next to me done. Once again, just looking through the brief, there's not much to kind of do. Making sure your students bounce it down properly as track 1 on the portfolio CD. Up to 3 live audio tracks, same as before. I don't think I've missed anything out here from what I can see. You know, and here's the thing: is there's no score attached, and even the score that we've produced for you, which you can download now from the musictechstudent.co.uk pages, even that one is no substitute for listening, and that's really important. This is predominantly a listening task. The reason we produce the score is my students, they tend to need a little bit of kind of something to fall back onto. One of the first years I did this, we actually did this task properly, and we sat down. The first couple of instruments we went through together, and then my students gradually worked out all the others, and I showed them some techniques for how to work out the key, how to work out the tempo, how to work out kind of notes and break it all down. And it took a lot of time, and you know, we want the best results for our students, so wasting time is not an option. It's definitely not an option. So anything that you can do to save them time is, well, they're going to thank you for it at the end. If you waste too much time now, you're going to lose out time for preparation on the exam. You're going to lose out time on probably one of the other pieces of coursework, all of which becomes ridiculously valuable. Okay, so let's see if we've got anything. No, it looks like we're on our own tonight, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Next week we're going to be talking about the recording task, so I'm going to join them both together. We're going to do 1B and 3B next week, so they're joint both together. And we're going to talk about some production tasks. Last week I couldn't quite get the audio working, so I'm going to try a different piece of software next week to see if we can listen to the audio as well. So hopefully that works out. That's what we've got planned for next week. More content, of course, so hopefully a few more instruments of the La 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 course finished. Hopefully we're going to have the next score finished in the next couple of weeks. We're starting to churn through revision cards. They're coming through slowly but surely. If you have any queries in the meantime, email me, get in contact. Other than that, I will see you next time.